Welcome back here on UKathletics.com. We're talking with Dale Peveto, Kentucky's new special teams coach. Welcome to Lexington.
Good to have you here. Good to be here.
You've been around the block a few times. Your resume, very interesting as a head coach, as an assistant. This is not your first signing day, obviously, but what has this one been like for you?
Well, it's been awesome. You know, it's been great to be in Lexington at the University of Kentucky, and I've been very impressed with the Big Blue Nation. You know, we have got to go to 2 or 3 basketball games during recruiting weekends, and it's really special. And looking forward to coaching the University of Kentucky. I think the world of Coach Stoops, and it's just been really, I got here December 14th, and it's just been a lot of fun, really enjoying it. 2
of the young men that you were responsible for recruiting we'll talk about in Austin McGinnis and Blake McLean. Let's start with Austin, who is a 5'10" kicker out of Prattville, Alabama. And I don't know if you're expecting him to move right in. Craig McIntosh moves on, an experienced guy who earned the job as a walk-on. What can you tell us about Austin?
Well, you know, Austin's one of the top kickers in the country, and we're excited to have him. He comes from a great program at Prattville High School and down in Prattville, Alabama. A lot of tradition. You know, Austin comes in as a guy that we feel like he can come in and compete to be our guy, you know, and the one thing that we'll have here at the University of Kentucky, offense, defense, and special teams will be competition. And but he's a guy, got a very strong leg, very accurate. You know, he's a guy that works extremely hard. Every time we talk to him, he's just getting off the practice field. You know, that's the thing sometimes with seniors, you know, they're not forced to go practice, but I've been very impressed with Austin because every time I talk to him, he's just either practiced or going to practice his kicking. So, you know, we're excited about him. He's a guy that comes in committed early, and is a guy that we're very proud to have, one of the top kickers in the whole country. So
he was a punter as well as a kicker. Is he projecting strictly as a kicker? Will he compete for the punting job? Or?
You know, Will, he's a dual guy, and it's like anything else. When you get a dual guy, you get 2 for 1. So we're excited about that, and we'll work him at both and see how it goes.
And we'll come back and talk about your philosophy with regard to the kicking game in just a moment. But tell me about Blake McLean, a freshman out of Winter Park, Florida. UK has gotten other athletes from other sports out of Winter Park, Florida. But what can you tell us about him, recruited as a defensive back?
Well, Blake comes in as a defensive back. We're going to play him at safety. We also think he can play corner, you know, and there'll be so much of the time our defense will have nickel personnel on the field with 5 DBs, and we feel like he can play either high safety, the stronger the free safety. We feel like he can play our nickel, and we feel like he can play corner. I mean, he's very talented. He can run, very good tackler. Just a very, very good person. I mean, we were very impressed with him, he and his family. So we're excited to have him, but a guy that we feel like fits a lot of needs in our secondary.
One service has him ranked in the top 60s in America as a safety, another in the top 60s as a corner. So he's got some capabilities in both areas, doesn't he?
He does. He could play outside, play inside. And like I said, I think he's a guy, he's very smart. You know, when he came in, we had a position meeting, and he really understands the game. He's been coached extremely well, and that always gives a guy like that a head start coming in, you know, because they have a good feel for the game. So, you know, again, just excited about him because we feel like there's so many places he can play. And what we'll try to do coming in is evaluate these guys in camp. And, you know, they might be a corner, they might be a safety, but where can we get them on the field the quickest? And Blake's a guy that was very upfront, said, hey, I just want to get on the field. Wherever y'all need me, I'll play. So, you know, we'll assess that during 2-a-day camp and try to get him on the field as quickly as possible.
If you haven't studied up on Coach Peveto yet, go online, find his resume. It's right here on UKathletics.com as well as other places. It would take me way too long to read it off to you, but let's say you're very experienced. And I'm sure you've coached special teams in terms of philosophy, different ways depending on the head coach for whom you were working. You were a head coach. Tell me about the way Mark Stoops wants special teams coordinated and coached here.
Well, you know, Coach Stoops is very adamant about one thing. He wants to be very good on special teams. And, you know, special teams, you're only as good as your head football coach allows you to be. And Coach Stoops is an open book. He wants the best players on it. He doesn't.
Even if it's a starter.
He doesn't care if we use starters.
Yeah.
Now, we'll be smart about that. You don't want your starting quarterback covering kickoffs. We'll be intelligent about it, but starters, he wants the best players on it. He's going to commit to it. Meeting time, walk-through time, practice time, and he's a guy that when he says something, with Mark Stoops, if he says it's Easter, you can dye your eggs because it's Easter. And, he's made a big commitment and made it very clear to me what he wanted on special teams. And I totally and 100% agreed with his philosophy. It wasn't like I had to beg for practice time or players and all that. And on some staffs, you do.
Yep.
Some head guys don't want starters. Hey, they don't want you to have meeting time. They don't want you to practice it, but they want you to be good at it. Coach Stoops is a football guy, and the one thing he has told me numerous times is we were going to meet, we're going to practice, we're going to walk through, and I want the best players on it. So you know what? As a special teams guy, gives you a chance to have success, and our whole staff will be involved coaching it. We'll do it together, and it's really a lot of fun because it is a third of the game. It's very important, and you look at the field exchange, the momentum and field position, in momentum, the big plays, the scoring. I mean, there's so much that the special teams can bring to your team to help win football games.
I have to ask you, did he tell you all that about meeting time and practice time before or after you took the job?
Oh, but before.
Good.
And I didn't have, the thing that I was impressed is, if you don't know Coach Stoops, he's very thorough. And when he called me, those were all the things that he said to me. I didn't have to ask those questions. And like I said, he's a stand-up guy. If he tells you something, you take it to the bank. And so I knew he was committed to it. It was a very exciting opportunity for me and my family, and we're proud to be with him. I think a whole lot of him got to coach with him back in 2000 at University of Houston. I knew right then he was headed for big things.
Is that why he called you, because of that prior relationship?
There's no doubt about it. I mean, getting into jobs is about who you know. Yeah, do you have to be a good coach, good recruiter? Yeah, you bet. But when I always say, if you hear about a job, it's a guy getting a job, it's too late.
Yep.
You better get a phone call before, and which I did. And his exact words say, hey, I'm in on a job, and would like you to come go with me. And you know what meant the world to me, because let me tell you something. Don't think that guy didn't have a lot of guys he could call.
Sure.
And anytime you get a job, you get called, especially by a guy with a resume, and Coach Stoops, I think the world of him, and I was just proud to be in Kentucky and proud to be with him. And he's a guy that's made a big commitment to winning, and I've just been so impressed with his recruiting organization and the staff he's put together. And you'll find in this Blue Nation, Big Blue Nation, will find that he's just a great guy, and he's a great person, and he's going to be that guy that'll shake your hand, that'll talk to you, that'll take a picture with you. That's who he is. He can't help it. So they got a dandy, a guy that is in this place for the long. The thing I was so impressed with, he's in it for the long haul here at the University of Kentucky. He really is, and he wants to do it right, and he's just he's special, and he'll prove it here.
What else can you tell us about your philosophy when it comes to special teams and how you want it done?
Well, we'll be a team that will be very sound, and we'll install every phase in the spring. We'll be very organized from our specialist workouts, our punters, our kickers, our snappers, our holders. It's all very important that we're structured with them, and they have structure, and they're getting coached as well. And then we get into the phases. I mean, we'll be a team that will be very solid, will be very sound. We'll spend a lot of time breaking down the opponent. We'll be a team that'll be very sound in our installation, our walkthroughs. We'll teach it we'll break it down and teach it just like you do offense and defense. Techniques, drills, whole part whole teaching. I mean, it's no different than offense and defense. I mean, if you really apply the concepts, it's offense and defensive schemes, just on a broader basis. And so that's the thing that I think that we'll do a good job of. We'll make sure that our personnel's right. One, we got the head coach that's going to give us everything we need to be successful. Make sure the personnel's right. make sure we do a great job of coaching it. Not just schematics, but the techniques involved in each and every phase.
Now that I'm in my third decade reporting the sidelines, one of the things I've seen firsthand is that every once in a while a special team situation looks like a fire drill, and that oftentimes penalties occur on special teams. Not enough players on the field, too many players on the field, guys not knowing they're supposed to be in when they are, etc. Somebody gets hurt, the backup guy's not sure. How do you guard against that? What are your philosophies on that?
Well, the thing you have to do within the special teams, there's so many situations you have to handle, and we'll have a checklist with each phase, and we'll make sure in the spring and two-a-day camp that we hit every situation. Thursday's a big situational practice day for us in the season. One that I think about was the other day when the Ravens took that safety.
Yep.
Well, that wasn't just a safety. They could have snapped the ball out of the end zone.
Sure.
That's a fast safety. They took a slow safety. Very good call. They did a great job protecting. The punter did a great job of scrambling around, headed to the corner of the end zone.
Ate up 7 or 8 seconds.
Ran off 7 or 8 seconds. So that's a situation that the Ravens had practiced and were ready for. And those.
Let me interrupt you there. Conversely, I'm not asking you to pass judgment. The Niners didn't seem to be ready for that. So I've got to think that's another situation on your checklist.
Well,
you got to be ready for something.
Well, you know what? They actually rushed. They had brought an all-out rush, but what you teach on that, and you can actually teach, hey, tackle them, hold them, because you know what? I mean, are they going to decline it?
Well,
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you can actually get by with some things there that you normally can't get by with. But I thought it was just a good call at the time. They did a great job protecting
Won
it.
the game.
And it helped win the game. There's no doubt. And because anything can happen with 12 seconds, we all know that. The bluegrass miracle here a few years ago. But I think those are the keys. You know what I'm saying? I mean, those are the keys. I mean, working all the situations and hitting them and being ready, because when you see it can go south on you in a hurry if you haven't put those young men in that situation.
Now, we're going to talk about another LSU game in a moment, but were you on that staff at LSU for the Bluegrass Miracle as well?
I was not.
Okay, but you Coach Peveto worked at LSU as well, so I know you've heard about it.
I was here in 2007.
Exactly. That's where I'm going now.
I've used that in recruiting. Hey, I can honestly say I was part of a #1 team in the country that got our tails whipped in that stadium. So, I haven't won a game in that stadium yet. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking forward to winning.
Yeah. I was going to say.
And but no, that was a great game, triple overtime, and that was a good Kentucky football team.
Well, and you can talk about it because you guys came back and won the national title that year.
Right.
So you got yourself a nice ring from that.
Got a nice ring. We actually lost another game.
I know.
We lost two conference games, both in triple overtime. So. We were fortunate, but that was a very, very, very good Kentucky football team.
What do you remember about the atmosphere in Commonwealth that day?
You know what I remember? It was we got here on Friday, stayed at the Hyatt Regency, and I'm a big basketball fan, and Midnight Madness was going on.
That's right.
So after we put our football team to bed, I snuck out. It was actually our wives trip. All our wives had come, and anyway, long story short, my wife says, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going over to the Midnight Madness. You want to go?" She said, "No, I'm going to sleep." So I went over, and they let me in. I told them who I was. They let me in the Midnight Madness, and I watched it for about an hour.
What'd you think?
I mean, yeah. I was blown away by it. You know what I'm saying? And that was I think Gillespie was he must have been the coach then, but I just thought it was so cool, and that was kind of one of my bucket list things, And now I've got to actually see Kentucky play a basketball game or a bunch of them.
You'll get better seats now at Madness, by the way.
I got better seats, yeah, you do. I was up in the rafters, but that thing was packed just like a basketball game. But the game, I was so impressed. Game day, we drive in the stadium. I thought the tailgating was off the charts. I thought the fans were great. And the thing I do remember that was a horrible feeling at the time was when that game ended, I could not get through the Kentucky fans to get to the locker room.
Swarmed the field.
They swarmed the field. So, I guess in a weird way that's a very bad memory. But now I'm a Kentucky Wildcat, and it's a great memory. It's a great memory.
And as you know, you had so many great players on that LSU team, but There were a lot of good to great players on that Kentucky team.
Well,
The Andre Woodsons, the Dickie Lyons, the Jacob Tammys,
the
Braxton Kellys. It's all about talent. It's all about players, and you've got talent lying on the walls today.
Well, it's a key. You know, I mean, I know this. The teams I've been on that we've won championships, and when I've coached positions, and I've done a real good job coaching a position, it's been because I've had good players.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, good players are what you win with, and nobody in the country wins with average or bad players. You got to have good players, and I think this recruiting class is just a good example of great things to come and what Coach Stoops is all about. And I just think it's a great job because we started this thing in the middle of December,
right.
And we got a very, very, very talented class coming in so far.
Two of the other guys on that team that bear mentioning in 07 were Wesley Woodyard and Trevard Lindley, and I know you remember him making that pick that would, I think, turn the game around in the LSU game. Woodyard was a guy who was recruited somewhat out of Georgia, but kind of overlooked. Lindley had an injury, and
Right.
it's an old story, but it happens a lot. So people backed off. Kentucky did not. Talk a little bit about how vital that is for you guys. And I talked earlier with Neil Brown about talent evaluation, grabbing a guy that maybe some other schools might not be too crazy about, but you guys see something in them, and you believe they'll blossom here.
Well, you know what happens today in recruiting is, but because of all the recruiting services, and because of time, and because we never really have an end to recruiting season. You know, you get confused sometimes, class of 213, class of 214. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. But the one thing that I think the people that do a really fantastic job of doing is they do a great job evaluating. You know, and just because a guy is not a 4-star, 5-star, 3-star guy, there's a lot of 2-star, 1-star, not ready guys that are great football players. So you got to do a thorough job in your areas. You know, when we divide up by areas and by states, and you got to do a great job of evaluating, not just looking at lists, and have a relationship with high school coaches, and make sure that every stone is turned over, and that you leave nothing to chance. And if you do that, you're going to do a good job recruiting. But there's a lot of great players. Let me tell you, you know what's hard about recruiting? It's humans judging humans.
No question.
That's a hard thing to do. It's not just a algebra formula that you and I can sit here and work out. I couldn't, maybe you could. I failed algebra. But my point being, that's the issue. There's no exact formula to it.
Sure.
And you know, the thing you can't judge off that tape always is what's inside that young man. That's why you have to do a great job of evaluating, getting to know the family, the coach, the principal, the trainer, everybody involved, because you know what? You can learn so much about a young man.
Not only that, they're 18. You don't know if they're done growing or they're going to keep going. One last question. I should have asked you earlier, but when your teams through, and again, a long and illustrious resume, your better special teams at wherever schools you've been, either Middle or Houston or LSU or Northwestern, are you guys, special teams, block a lot of kicks, returns? Was there something that you might specialize in, or are you better at some things than others traditionally?
Well, you know what, I think what you have to do, no different than offense and defense, you got to kind of assess your talent, you know, and then go from there. But, you know, traditionally, we've been very aggressive. I mean, you're going to see us be aggressive. I mean, we're going to force the opponent to be sound. You know, we're going to, you know, find weaknesses, game plan weaknesses, and you got to hunt for all that. I mean, we're just not going to line up and say, hey, this is our kickoff return, we're going to do it the same way every week. You have to evaluate, break down the opponent, and then game plan from there, just like you do offensively and defensively.
Why practice time is vital.
It's so vital. People that don't give a lot of time to it.
And that happens.
It happens. I mean, you see it on tape. I mean, you can, you know, they're very predictable. They're going to do one thing. They're not going to work at it. And the difference here, we will, because of our head football coach has already told me we will. And that's the thing I'm excited about, you know, being the safety/special teams coordinator here. I mean, I got a head guy that's a special teams guy, and he's a defensive guy. Can it be any better?
He said you're going to do it, so dye your eggs, right?
Hey, if he tells you it's Easter, dye your eggs, I'm telling you.